Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I am also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over what I believe is a pretty foolproof method for most avoidants to actually be more open to loving somebody. And hopefully, by using this method, it can be for a very long time, could be forever. And so that's kind of the goal for this video today. Now, we're trying to help this individual actually open up to love and accept their love rather than fight against it. And I feel like it works a lot of the time. I do want to emphasize that love and commitment is not necessarily controlled by fear alone, but it involves a lot of internal feelings and perceptions. And we're going to go over that before we actually talk about the method so that you guys can understand where it's coming from, okay? It's very important, I feel, to know that avoidance often exhibits stubbornness rather than actually something that you might perceive to look like fear. And so not really in replace, but their behavior towards something they're uncomfortable with or afraid of is going to look like rigidness or stubbornness or unwilling to compromise. And they often don't like being told what to do due to their strict upbringing and their high expectations from childhood. So that's why you see it like that. I want to use a different example. This is not an attachment example, but I think it will help you understand what I'm talking about. The example I'm going to use throughout is going to be comparison to social anxiety. However, I'm not saying those who have avoidant attachment has social anxiety, and I'm not saying those who have social anxiety have avoidant attachment. They're separate. I'm just using it as an example. A lot of people have social anxiety. Let's say they avoid situations where there are people who they don't know. They might avoid it with that. It's not like they're sitting and shivering in their car. It doesn't look like that. It's almost like they almost exhibit some behavior of stubbornness or rigidness around social situations because they feel uncomfortable. Not every person with social anxiety behaves like that, but it's common, right? And so it's very similar. It comes from fear, but it's not the fear of love for avoidance itself or social interactions itself. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But let's go ahead with the perceptions avoidants have of love to why this might be a little bit of a challenge. Avoidants don't necessarily fear commitment itself, but rather what it signifies, such as losing autonomy or trust. They create subconscious barriers, making it hard for them to actually recognize their true fear. And so they react very poorly to the concept of commitment without realizing that they're afraid of the autonomy and the trust. And so the best method, which is what we're going to talk about in more detail, but in short, by tackling those fears and comforting those fears, they're going to be more willing to commit. Very similar to love, which is in the same vein. They don't necessarily fear love. They fear failing due to the inexperience they have of their emotions. And when they have these overwhelming emotions, they don't know what to do with them. And so to them, that makes them feel like if I don't know what to do with it, I'm going to fail at it because I don't have much proof that I'm not going to fail. And so that's why they avoid these types of things. It's not the love itself. It's not the commitment itself. And understanding that can help. And so let's go ahead and go back to that social anxiety example so that you guys can really understand why this is important. Again, social anxiety, dismissive avoidant attachment, and fearful avoidant attachment is not the same thing, okay? But when somebody has social anxiety, for example, you don't force them to go up on stage and sing in front of 200 people. Please don't do that, right? That's not going to help. That may create more issues. Similarly, avoidant individuals, you don't force them right away to be pressured into commitment and love. It's going to scare them. It's going to make them uncomfortable. Same with people with social anxiety. All that's going to do is make the situation worse. People with social anxiety are not necessarily afraid of socializing. They're typically afraid of ridicule and judgment. And I made a video on social anxiety on my second channel if anyone's curious. But in general, that's what they're afraid of. They're not, but the socialization comes with all of those fears. And so they avoid socialization. Avoidants have all of those fears: failure, losing autonomy, having their trust broken. And so that is what love and commitment signifies. Does that make sense? And so if a person with social anxiety, for example, they can learn that socializing is not going to end in ridicule or judgment, or they realize it's not as bad as they think it was, they're going to be less likely to be uncomfortable with socialization. They also will be less afraid of the concept of ridicule and judgment and realizing that that's okay to accept a part of in life. They start being more comfortable with that fear. It's not as irrational if they get closer to it, right? Same with people with attachment issues. You can do the same thing. Of course, in a clinical standpoint, you do that with a therapist. I'm not saying for you guys to do that. What I'm going to do is give you more relational concepts for you guys to tackle some of these issues, okay? Based off what I just explained, but just a little bit more social psychology, okay? So the very first suggestion that I have for anybody who wants to help their partner get more comfortable with love is actually providing space. Because what happens is, any time apart, and I'm going to explain space in a little bit, but any time apart allows this person to realize you're not going to take away their independence. And so that's why space is very important. I recommend built-in space. I don't recommend you guys going like weeks without talking or months without talking in some sort of off and on situation. A lot of you guys who watch my channel know I'm not a fan necessarily of off and on situations. If it happens, it happens, right? But I try to not let that happen with as many patients as possible, and just in general, I think it makes things harder. However, every situation is different, so don't be discouraged. But what I mean by built-in space is maybe seeing each other once or twice a week instead of 4 or 5 times a week, especially in the beginning. Maybe when you guys are hanging out, you don't always stay the night. Maybe sometimes you don't stay the night. Or you only stay the night at very special occasions, okay? Those are types of examples. Or maybe what you can do is you can have more frequent times visiting, but just less time together, maybe 2 or 3 hours. And when you want to spend a long time together, you only see each other for that 1 week, and it's like a very special type of thing. Maybe you go to a hotel together, do something that you both have hobbies with. If you guys like going to the pool or doing outdoors thing, maybe you guys can do that. Something that provides that space throughout the relationship. So this means that you guys also will do things separately, take trips separately, have friends outside of each other, retain both independence, because what ends up happening is the avoidant individual realizes that you're not going to take away their space. So if they do love you, if they do commit to you, their autonomy is not threatened, okay? The next one is offer reassurance. Now, I think this is crucial for specific fears, such as fears of manipulation or loss of space. It doesn't mean you continuously say this all the time, but what it does mean is that if you feel like they're uncomfortable at something, you can say, I'm not trying to take away your space. Do you need space right now? Is there anything that you want to talk about, or do you need me to back off? What is it? Because I'm okay with that, right? Let's say they're acting a type of way and you're sensing that. Go ahead and communicate with that. And if they say no, I'll tell you, go ahead and just be yourself. It's fine. Now, manipulation, a lot of times avoidant individuals will say they feel like you're manipulating them. And if they're saying that, yes, you can crash out, but it might not help. What might be better is if you say, I'm not manipulating you. I promise I'm being as genuine as possible. It helps them to realize you're not trying to break their trust, which is one of their other fears that's underneath commitment and love. So once you're able to reassure them, those fears are also going to slowly go away and they'll be more comfortable committing and falling in love, okay? The next one is acknowledging efforts, okay? Remember we had mentioned one of their fears is failure. And so this one really helps with failure. Acknowledging their efforts and appreciate what they do can actually help them motivate towards commitment, okay? The next one is also reinforcing trustworthiness in yourself. You want to be consistent and reliable to build a strong foundation of love. That also models a behavior for them. A lot of avoidants are not very consistent, but some of them, especially dismissive avoidants, can be very consistent and reliable, but it's like very minimal emotion. In general, you show up trustworthy regardless of what they're showing up, and communicate if you need more of that as well, because we want both individuals to create a strong foundation. That's just helpful in relationships. They have to show up and do the work as well. The next one is you want to communicate your feelings without expecting immediate changes in their behavior. So if you are not liking that they're not consistent, we were just talking about that, mention that you are wanting more consistency from them. You appreciate how much they do show up and you can really see their intention behind it, and you know they don't mean anything bad by sometimes not answering text messages as quickly, but you would like if they would be more immediate about it if it's possible, and just say that you're expecting that at some point. It doesn't have to be right away. By communicating in a way where you're still standing up for what you believe, but still understanding their specific case and your specific case, you're building a relationship together between two different people who also want to become one as a couple, right? Because both people fit in this relationship, okay? The next one is you want to respect them and also be accountable for your actions. We want to avoid disrespectful behaviors such as eye rolling, crossing arms, pouting, anything like that. And if you do, you want to take accountability and apologize if you do those behaviors, okay? And I do want to wrap this up with an expectation. I want you guys to understand commitment and love takes longer with avoidant partners, especially dismissive avoidant. It does require patience and it is a gradual process. And so I want you guys to know that. Let's go ahead and go through some of the points to help an avoidant be open to love, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're just going to summarize it really quick, okay? The first one is providing space. The second one is offer reassurance. The third one is acknowledge their efforts. The fourth one is you want to reinforce your own trustworthiness. You want to communicate your feelings. And then the last one is respect and accountability. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.